Require performance specifications, set specific targets for energy usage, environmental protections, etc., so we know what to expect when the facility comes online. This is standard practice. The list goes on, but I'm out of time. What I've described are some of the minimum clarifications and protections that must be spelled out in agreement of this scale. How did you miss all of this? Do your due diligence. Don't be distracted by the shiny objects of verbal promises and charts that don't mean anything. Read and understand the ordinances before you vote and quit putting our city in legal and financial jeopardy.
Good evening, Council. Laverne Mitchum, 508 Hunters Ridge Drive. Mayor, first, I would like to thank you for the upcoming town hall that we're going to have. I think town halls have a very good purpose. You can have discussions and ask questions and do that here. We've been told many times this is where we take care of the business. And of course, we get a chance to give comments about concerns we have. But I thank you for that because we need town halls. The other thing is what Becky and Alan have already talked about. With all this going on in our country where it seems like people want to prevent people from voting and some people are targeted, and I'll just be very blunt. African-American people being targeted very much so in terms of taking the vote away. So I don't think that was in the best interest of the people in our city for that not to go on the ballot, the 1/4% for the fire department. I think you should have trusted us to vote yay or nay. And if it passed, it passed. If it didn't, it didn't. But it was a reflection of not thinking that we should have that right, that you all kind of just thought for us. And that's not good. I don't want Ferguson, the city of Ferguson, to have that kind of reflection on them. I don't. I have relatives, friends who still call me, what's going on in Ferguson? Sometimes they read what's going on in Ferguson. So as I always say, continue to do what's in the best interest of the people and this city.
Deborah Carter.
Good evening, Council. My name is Deborah Carter. I'm Alderwoman in the City of Cool Valley, Ward 1. I came before you in June asking for assistance with crosswalk signage in front of the McClure South Berkeley STEM Academy, which now houses their middle school, 6th, 7th, 8th, as well as high school. I have conversed with Public Works, Mr. Gilbert, and a detailed text from your city manager, Mr. Musgrave. I apologize if my previous request and photo were not clear. I have additional signage that clearly expresses Missouri state law. Pedestrians and crosswalks have the right of way. Presently, there are the gold and black signs which show persons crossing. The present signage is not effective. I have personal knowledge that drivers are not stopping or yielding to pedestrians in the crosswalk. I have young residents who are students at that school. They are considered walkers. They have to cross Brotherton to get to our municipality, which is 1 block over from the high school / middle school. I'm asking if the city can assist in adding signage that state Missouri law. Many of the signs say, they are red and white, they say yield to pedestrians, stop for pedestrians and crosswalk. I have some better signage this time, detailing more of what I'm requesting. I've had conversations with law enforcement which state that students using the crosswalks is vital for their safety. If the city of Ferguson can help, this would benefit my young residents and the students who attend the STEM Academy. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
John Knowles,
Good evening, John Knowles, 716 North Elizabeth Avenue, Ward 1. I was elected to the school board about 20 years ago. We went to a board boot camp where they told us about the Hancock Amendment. The Hancock Amendment was put in place to prevent boards such as this from arbitrarily taxing the citizens without their permission through a vote. The last meeting, when I listened to it, I felt like I was being deceived and saying, no, this isn't the way it is. And I'm hurt. I voted in every election since I moved here in the last century. And I feel, except for maybe a couple of elections, I elected people who were, or I worked for people who were working for the city. It bothers me that certain people think that we're too stupid to, realize what good a tax would be. And we're basically telling our public safety that, oh no, we can afford to hand Onder a ton of money, but we're not gonna help our firefighters. We're gonna let our cops starve. So, no. But anyway, thank you. We would like to have our opinion be sought on this. And the Hancock Amendment is not what it was said it was last time. Thank you.
Valerie Shropshire,
Hello, Valerie, Shropshire, 709 Forest Avenue. Okay, I want to speak briefly about representation because I think some of the frustration surrounding the recent discussion about sales tax increase may actually be something deeper than the tax itself. I understand that council members represent the people, and I understand that representation does not mean council must agree with residents on every issue. There is a legitimate model of representation in which elected officials listen to their constituents, study the facts, and then exercise their own judgment about what they believe is best for the community. I respect that. But there is another important part of representation: respecting the ability of the people you represent to make decisions for themselves when the process allows them to do so. When residents express an interest in having the proposed sales tax placed before voters, I believe many of them understood that they would ultimately have an opportunity to make that decision for themselves. So that when council decided not to put the question before the voters, I think some residents experienced that as more than a disagreement. They experienced it as, you brought the matter before us, but you decided for us. And I think we should pay attention to that feeling. There's also something else I want to say. When we talk about residents who may be struggling financially, let's be careful not to confuse someone's economic circumstances with their intelligence, education, or ability to understand complex issues. Yes, some Ferguson residents may be eating ramen noodles, but some of those ramen noodle eaters have college degrees, advanced degrees, professional experience, business experience, and decades of life experience. Some are very capable of looking at a budget, understanding a tax proposal, weighing competing interests, and making an informed decision. So I don't think the question should be whether residents are sophisticated enough to decide. The question should be whether we are willing to trust residents with the information necessary to make that decision. That's the kind of representation I would like to see in Ferguson. Not representation that simply does whatever residents demand, and not representation that assumes elected officials always knows best, but representation that says, we will give you the facts, we will listen to you, we will explain our position, and when the law gives you the right to make that decision, we will respect your ability to do so. Ferguson residents already know the reason to. People distress one another, eat much. Sorry, Bear, I apologize.
Are there any more, citizens? This is public comment. City manager, is there a member's report tonight?
Yeah, there's a short one, but I don't know if I can follow that one. I understand. Good luck later. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Summer is winding down, so I just wanted to go over a few things that we're wrapping up. The pool's closing down. Summer day camp wrapped up. They average about 150 to 160 campers each week, so another solid program this year. Public Works is catching up on the grass, streets, and trees. Tree truck's finally back up and running. It was down for almost a month, so very happy about that. We got some people working on our code revisions, taking a look at all that. They're working on titles for the city-owned properties. We currently are interviewing for a new finance director. We started that process last week, so walking through that. I have staff drafting several RFPs, including for our cell phone service, looking at our citywide internet, potentially citywide towing, and several other RFPs in the wings that we're drafting right now. We're getting ready to start on the CIP process, so get ready for another lovely budget session here in the next several months. For capital improvements, we are also starting on our annual audit with our auditors, and then we are also looking at the personnel manual currently. I did want to mention that the one public comment about the red and white signs, I did receive the email. I'm talking to Public Works about that right now, trying to find a solution for that. But that's my brief update. If there are questions, I'm more than happy to address those.
Okay, thank you. I just have a couple questions. Okay, you just stated first that the city put out an RFP for the towing. Okay, I didn't hear.
Stated we are drafting several RFPs, including our internet service, our cell phone service, and looking at citywide towing as well. Those are
Okay.
just 3 examples. I've got a list about 5 or 6, but I didn't want to go into a ton of detail right now. But those will all be publicized on the website. It's a bidding process to start that, and then we bring that contract to you guys to take a look at.
Who does the city use now for towing?
We do not have a contracted tow service. They just call who they think can come out and tow the vehicles. We don't have anybody dedicated currently.
Okay,
That's part of the reason I want to do the RFP, because I would like to have one individual company who is responsible for that. So we could then also hold them accountable for accident cleanup and other things that we all know are a problem.
okay, thank you for that clarity. The next, thank you for addressing Alderwoman's concern, because I was, of course, going to bring that up later on. The next question is, city manager, is there an update on the, I guess we can call it the Onder campus now? Have we heard from Mr. Onder? Does he plan to present on the plans for the campus to the community?
Last discussion I had, he was looking at a multi-phased approach. I have not seen any actual permits or anything else being pulled. We're just awaiting next steps. So
Okay.
short answer is nothing definite, but still talking about what he's planning on doing.
Okay, the next question is, residents have asked about the spraying for mosquitoes, and I know that we discuss this every year. Now, I explained to residents that they have to call Public Works to make the request, because I believe that's what I've been told in the past. So can you just elaborate on that so that I can tell residents what the city's explanation when it comes to spraying for the mosquitoes?
So spraying for mosquitoes is a little bit controversial, so we don't do it throughout the whole city because of honeybees and other things. If we get a request for a specific neighborhood to be sprayed, we try to do our best, but it's not something we do citywide because of
Right.
people's opinions. So if you contact us, we will try to address it, but it's nothing we do citywide.
And that's exactly what I explained to the residents on Ellison, in the Forestwood neighborhood, and in the Nesbitt New neighborhood, and I will reiterate that. Lastly, and you don't have to, of course, mention every property, but would you just explain to the community where we are? I know I have received concerns about, again, the mowing, the houses that require abatement, and I know the city staff is working, but would you just speak to that? Because, the residents on Marvin, the house on Haley, the houses on Annabelle, I just want residents to know it's not forgotten about. of course, the city is working, but would you just speak to that, please?
Yeah, so I'll address your comment
Just-
broadly.
Yes,
I did reply to your emails with all the specific ones, so if you want to pass that information on to direct addresses, by all means, you have that information. Big picture, there are two different routes, as I've mentioned before, when it comes to tall grass, trash, rubbish, debris, that kind of stuff. We have the weekly hearings, and if we have concerns with a nuisance finding, they come to the hearings, we address it. Usually if people show up, we will work with them, if they need to mow their grass, that kind of stuff. If they're not here, we can abate it immediately, and that's a 14-day process. If it's something a little more drastic, whether it's windows, siding, gutters, that kind of stuff, we have to send it through the court system. They stand in front of the judge, explain their case, and go that route, and the judge can decide which way he's going to weigh on that. But in a best case scenario, if a yard needs mowed, we will address it. And then it'll come to our public hearing, and then we will hopefully mow that within a 14-day window. In saying that, we currently have 2 mowers that are down, so we are short. We're trying to make ends meet, but we're waiting on parts for a couple of them, so we are a little delayed currently. We're trying to get that back up and running where it needs to be, so.
And just one, thank you for that, because I didn't know that there were 2 mowers down, and I will let residents know that. The last question, and I know this was briefly mentioned, I wasn't in person at the last council meeting, and I apologize. I was on Zoom. But at this time, where are we working with legal on the security camera ordinance recommendations for the liquor licenses?
They are reviewing it currently. That was emailed to them a week ago or so, and I'm waiting on response from legal as far as updating that, but that is in the process.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Manager.
Yes, ma'am.
When you reference the 14-day period, so once the nuisance has been declared and they've had their court hearing, you have to wait 14 days to abate that nuisance?
So I have to give them 14 days to address it, and then I have, if it's going to court, I have a 10-day window when the warrant is executed to complete my work. So in total, it could be 24 days, if that makes sense.
And once that 24 days starts, the grass is already 7 inches tall?
That is correct.
Does state law just dictate this, or is this our own ordinances?
I'm not positive on that one. I would have to do some investigating. It's
If
just
you would
one
like
of
our
the-
ordinances to be more strict and robust on that matter, please let me know and I will sponsor that legislation.
Well, and you have to remember as well, like, I would love to say, let's, and if it's legal, I'd love to address it in 7 days, but I still only have 2 guys. And so the likelihood of me being able to address everything that quickly is very slim at the current moment. And so it's not going to be impactful right now. If we got back to full force where we had 3 guys doing it, 3 guys writing the tickets, all that, 100%, I'd love to address that. But the honest truth is right now, they can't even address it in the time they have.
That's partially probably because they're cutting 3-foot tall grass.
It is some of it. And
Instead of
also
1 foot.
while we have wear and tear on the mowers, we're waiting on parts and everything else because you're looking at 18-inch grass versus 7, 8-inch grass.
Now, is there clear guidance given when it comes to our summary abatement ordinance? Because summary abatement allows us to work significantly faster. That terminology is, is it detrimental to, life and human safety, correct? That's
Correct.
like a board up ordinance.
Yeah.
You
so
will
it-
you can board up immediately without a hearing because you use summary abatement.
But yeah, and it has to meet certain standards when it comes to that as far as health and safety and that kind of stuff. And it's a little bit harder to provide the legal traction on, but there are cases we can do that. You're correct.
Yeah, if there is any way that you can see from our end where we can make that timeline a little shorter, I think that would make sense for everybody. And I understand we're short-staffed now, but from personal experience doing abatement work prior to being on council, it's a lot nicer to cut 12-inch grass than 36-inch grass.
And truthfully, once we get through this, like, the end goal is to make sure lots are cleaned up, things are better, and then coming into spring, it's not as bad. But it's got to slow down the growing first. Like, we can't do that
Right.
now because it's still active. So.
Thank you.
Councilman Franklin?
Quick question. Have you been able to reach the broker for Popeyes yet about?
I have not.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you, City Manager. I appreciate your report. A very good report this evening. Now we move to a special presentation. We have a special presentation from FNIP. Larry, would you come forward, please?
Good evening, City Council, City Staff. So we're here to give the final presentation on FNIP use of city allocated funds so far. We'll go through those. I do have a couple of introductory things just to make sure that you are familiar with FNIP and their mission, right? So the mission of FNIP again is developing and promoting housing in Ferguson. That's our biggest undertaking. You'll notice when we get to the programs, that's what they drive toward. We drive that very hard, try to stay on it. All of the programs that we have fall within the mission statement, and we work to keep that moving forward. The acronyms that you're going to see in the presentation here this evening, ARPA is obviously the American Rescue Plan Act. EIM, that's our Exterior Improvement Matching Program. The FTAP is the Ferguson Tree Assistance Program. The Good Neighbor Grant, that's for the new home buyers, that's GNG. The Neighborhood Improvement Matching Program, that's NIM. SRP is a Sidewalk Repair Program, that's a 50-50 program. And MAHA is the Missouri Abandoned Housing Act. So the first status is where we stand with regards to current operations and applications, right? So currently our program has 4 functioning grant application programs. 2 of them have low income options attached to them. None of these are new. They've all been around for several years. The exterior home improvement is a 50% matching with a $1,500 maximum. It does have a low income option where you are not required to match funds. The new home buyer program, that is a $3,500 3-year forgivable loan is actually what that is. It's not a true grant. And that's targeted at helping people move into Ferguson into a new home, right? Sidewalk repair, again, this is for public sidewalk, not private sidewalk on your property. So the public sidewalks became resident responsibility a number of years ago. As a result of that, the council put together a sidewalk program. They will pay 50% of the cost of putting that up to $2,500 maximum. The neighborhood organization grant, that one's been around for a very long time. Any neighborhood organization that's bringing labor or other things to the table can qualify for a $1,000 grant to do a number of things, right? There's been signs, different things over the years. The conservation program that's currently in place is the Missouri Abandoned Housing Act. We assessed 22 properties to begin with. One of those is resolved. We went to court and the owner of the property actually stepped up. This was in Canfield at the head of the street going into the off of Florissant Road. The owner actually modified the house and got a occupancy permit and put it to good use after it sat there burned out for 3 years. As a result of us, taking them to court for that. The last one is in active status. FNIP is due to see the sheriff sign the deed over to FNIP tomorrow for that property. We have been renovating the outside under a temporary deed. That's the way the Abandoned Housing Act works. The judge granted us that piece and it should be signed tomorrow. We'll move forward with the full renovation on that property. I broke this into 2 parts, mainly so I could cover the ARPA funds. There's always a lot of questions around the ARPA funds and the use of those. So the first portion stems from 2022 when we started through September of 2025, which is when we exhausted the ARPA funds. The total ARPA funds that were granted to FNIP were $650,000 over that course of 2022 to 2025. With that money, we paid out 333 exterior improvement applications, 79 tree assistance applications, 15 good neighbor grants, and 3 sidewalk repair program applications. The dollars that are tied to all of those applications, the next piece, EIM paid out $444,630, and that and that brought an investment of a little over $1.5 million from the total amount of money that was spent doing the renovation. So obviously the homeowners brought the rest to the table. That's nearly a 4-to-1 return on investment, right? That is a fantastic investment, in my opinion, one of the best and most popular programs that FNIP has. The Ferguson Tree Assistance Program was started mid 2023, latter part of 2023 when we really got going. That one paid out $151,000. The average payment per applicant was $1,914. That is a 75% matching program. It depends on the size of the tree. It's really difficult to lay that out with an ROI number. But essentially it cleared a lot of trees out of Ferguson that were dead, right? It was a good program brought in that currently is suspended. We'll talk about that in a minute. The Good Neighbor Grant Program in this time period, we had 15 new homeowners come in that qualified. That was payout of $50,500 it started out at a $2,500 payout back in 2022. And then we graduated it up to a $3,500 payout. So there were a couple of different levels in there, but that's the total dollar spend. The sidewalk program paid out $4,500. The homeowners invested about that much again. So we had $9,700 total invested in public sidewalks through the program in that time period. The total ARPA status of the $650,000 that was received and paid, you'll notice we were over by $842. That came out of EDST funds that came to us the next year. I'll talk about those on the next slide. The ARPA funds were exhausted by the end of September 2025. So we fell within the timeline that the city had to expend the funds. They were all spent in the areas that you see above. So the summary of where we are after ARPA, right, from October of 2025 through June, our end of our fiscal year, basically this year. The application status, there were $100,000 received in EDST funds for that time period. FNIP has paid out $198,000 and change so far on that. We've had 77 EIM applications paid, 36 tree assistance applications paid, and 10 new Good Neighbor grants. The dollars tied to those grant numbers are EIM paid out $100,000, a little over $100,000. There was a $381,000 total investment. Again, falls very near a 4 times return on investment for the dollar that FNIP put into the neighborhood. The tree assistance program was $62,690 paid out on those 36 applications. And that was $1,741 average per tree at the 75% level that the applicants got. The Good Neighbor Grant, again, there were 10 Good Neighbor grants given. We were at the 3,500 level, the 2,500 level was gone. So there was $35,000 paid out there. The total EDST funds that we received last year were $100,000. The FNIP reserves fund has carried the $98,153 that's been paid over the $100,000 of EDST from last year. In 2025, EDST funds were exhausted around mid-February this year. In 2026, 2027, EDST funds are currently sitting at $300,000 projected by this council pending a contract. So the summary of where we are since the end of our fiscal year, July 26 forward, we currently have 31 applications in process. We have 11 tree applications that are still in process, even though the program has actually been suspended due to funding. And the Good Neighbor Grant, there are 3 applications in process today. Actually, I think one of those closed this week. I wasn't involved in getting the check for that one. So I think one of them has closed. The dollar status of that, again, we talked about the $300,000 that's pending a contract. We are very close with the contract. We've gone through a couple of iterations. We're just waiting for it to get final legal and it'll come in and we'll sign off on it and that'll start the contract support protecting the city and FNIP both, right? FNIP continues, this is important, right? I think FNIP continues funding the exterior program, the Good Neighbor Grant program, the sidewalk, and the neighborhood improvement in good faith that the 2026, 2027 EDST funds will be distributed once the new contract is signed, right? It's important, we have suspended the tree program. It is completely exhausted and out of funds. We would really like to see that restart with new funding, but we have to get some money in to be able to carry that part. Carrying the exterior and the Good Neighbor Grant is a pretty big chunk for FNIP. And that is it. Questions? Yes, Councilman.
Well, just right quick, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the presentation.
You'll have to speak up.
Thank you for the presentation. Thank you for the presentation.
Yes.
Just right quick, you stated that the tree program is out of funding. Are you all able to use your reserve funding for the tree program?
No, we don't have enough reserve funding to run the tree program.
Are you able to share with us how much reserve funding you do have?
I'm sorry,
How much reserve funding you do have?
I don't know the exact number of the reserve funding, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Councilman Palmer?
Can you share with us any hopes that FNIP has for future programming that you guys have discussed in your meetings?
So there has been a lot of discussion around future programs and what we can do in Ferguson, right? One of the biggest programs that we would really like to put in place, and I've talked about this a little before, is a program that focuses on taking dead trees out of the city that are a risk. We had high hopes for the tree program to do a lot more of that than it did, but you can't force a homeowner to bring their part of the money to the table to take the tree down. So we would really like to strengthen the tree program and focus on taking down not only trees that are on properties that are owned, but we'd like to focus on trees that are on rental properties as well. It's very hard to get some of the landlords to do that. Some of them did take them down on their own. They didn't qualify because they're a landlord, didn't qualify to work it through FNIP, but we would like to support that going forward, just to get the dead trees out of the way. There's been too many instances where a dead tree has fallen on a car or a neighbor's house or something, and it was sitting on a property where we could have done something with that if we had had the ability. Typically, FNIP has stayed away from getting into rental property assistance. That's a touchy subject, but it's something we would like to continue to delve into and be able to come up with a way, if we had the funding, to be able to do that, because it protects the city and the neighbors next door who might have something to that effect. Another program that we have kicked around with the Abandoned Housing Act is being able to go in and do some work with the city and possibly do infill housing. That is a big step. We would need a program to help us fund that, to pull something like that off, but it's no different than you see with Beyond Housing or anybody else that's doing infill. The biggest problem with that in Ferguson is to build a new home and get the money out of what it costs you to build it is a very thin margin. So we would end up probably having to subsidize the sales price of the home, which is okay if you're subsidizing it for the right group, right? Maybe we go to the first-time homebuyer group and help with some subsidies there or something. Again, these are programs that the board has discussed. Nothing's been voted on and put in place yet.
Well, as somebody who owns some rental properties and spent about $4,500 on tree work this week, I sure would have been nice to get help with that, but it's okay. It needed to be done and I spent the money. What I wanted to ask about was the Abandoned Housing Act work. It's been really exciting to see that house on Beacon transformed from something that was dragging down the entire block Because that's what these houses do. People move out of these houses and just leave them to rot, and everybody else who lives there suffers from it in terms of quality of life and property values as well. You mentioned that you guys evaluated 22 of them, went after two, one of them self-resolved, and the other is that house on Beacon you've been doing so much work on. Is there the remaining 22, are those prospects? I mean, do you have a roster of houses that if you've got the time and the money that you would get to?
We did when we started, but there's a narrow set of qualifications that we have to require. And what happens is they will pay the taxes, which takes it out of our qualifications, right?
Right.
Or there'll be some other reason why it doesn't fall under the reasoning that the Missouri Abandoned Housing Act allows a nonprofit to use to recover a home. There are a couple more out there. We looked at, this number's dated from, back through where we were, or the previous slide. But we did look at one on Tiffin, and we were ready to go after it. We'd already turned it over to the lawyer, and they came in and paid the taxes, right? So there are ways that we can, do that, but we also have to work within the state law.
Of course. Thank you.
Just would like to add a few things. You stated that you all are discussing a program where you could help landlords with the tree trimming on their property. I would also like to see a program to help owners. I mean, if you all are going to help landlords, then why don't we help homeowners who don't live in the property? There are, for instance, 1101 Haley, that property is vacant. And it was abated earlier this season, but again, the grass needs to be mowed, the gutter is hanging off of the property. So just putting it out there, because if you all do vote on such a program to help landlords, let me go back, I apologize, to help people who have rental properties, which they're ultimately landlords, then we should just help everyone. We should help homeowners, people who occupy the home, people who do not occupy the home, who need help. I mean, because people who have rental properties, they're receiving funds every month from that property. So, and not saying that, we all know the cost of goods and services has increased, but I'm just saying that let's help everyone. Let's really do work together to help better these properties in these neighborhoods. As Councilman Kassoff just stated, that one house can bring the entire neighborhood down. So that's just my ask, let's just not help the homeowners or the landlords who are renting these properties, who are receiving funds every month. Let's help everyone. Let's really help work to improve our neighborhoods. Thank
Understood.
you.
Thank you for your comment.
Councilman Franklin?
Thanks for coming out this evening. Quick question. How does somebody go about joining your board?
When there are board openings, they're posted on the website, and you turn in an application the same as pretty much any other board that's out there.
The city's website or your website?
No, on the FNIP website.
Okay. And do you have any idea when you may have some spots coming up?
There is an open board position, has been open for some time, for a banker.
Oh, banker. Okay.
Yeah, we have, our board consists of 9 people in various capacities. 3 of those are capacities that fill construction, insurance, banking, those kinds of things. The banking board position has been vacant for a couple years. We've contacted several banking, entities and haven't brought anybody to that board position yet.
Gotcha. Last question. Excuse
I'll add to that, I'm rolling off of the board next June. My term limit's up.
Okay. Not renewing?
Huh?
Not renewing or?
You only allowed 3 terms and then you gotta
Okay.
roll off.
Gotcha. Okay. So my last question, sorry, I'm getting old, that memory, it goes, it's been a busy day.
You got a ways to go.
God willing, So my last question is, have you all been able to secure any additional funding from any other outside entities? I know you said that was one of the reasons why you guys wanted to break away from the city.
Yeah, we have not. We have several grant applications that have been put in. Some of them, didn't result in anything. We have a couple that are out there now. But we have not received any funding from outside sources yet.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Councilman Palmer?
Just want to mention too, with the Abandoned Housing Act, while Beacon is becoming a success story using the Abandoned Housing Act, Canfield was just as successful in my opinion, because that property was horrible. It was actually slated for demolition by the city. The utilities had gone as far as being disconnected. That owner, had he not been held accountable and brought to court with an attorney, that house would still be sitting there in that condition. I can guarantee it. So the pressure that FNIP put to the possibility of receiving temporary ownership forced that property to be put to the top of the priority list of that owner. Because he self-admittedly said, I got projects all over town. I don't have time to do them all. Well, the thought of losing his house made him get his butt in gear. The same thing is proven true on Tiffin. That property, you guys went for that property immediately. Within a week, the taxes were paid,
Yep.
The grass was cut, the bushes were cut down, and it's on the market right now. It's for sale. It needs a couple $100,000 in work, but that house has been sitting empty for at least 15 years that I could tell. It's right there on the corner. You can't miss it. It's like right where 3 streets come together, 2-story historic home, just rotting. I mean, you can see from the pictures, it's full of mildew and mold inside, but that house is now, the yard is cleaned up and it is on the market. So that owner has realized that, they're not playing around over there anymore. We can't just cut the grass and pay the taxes and get off scot-free over there anymore. So it's good to see that although you didn't get that property on Tiffin, it is hopefully going to go into hands of somebody who will do something with it, similar to what happened on Canfield. And there's an example on Plantmore you guys have been addressing. That house has been vacant for, I think, 17 years. And it's just sitting there on Plantmore, surrounded by nice houses, been vandalized, broke into, pipes taken, basically everything but lit on fire. And, it still sits there. And I think she went and paid 1 year. She's 2 years back on taxes. So, but she skates past the tax sale every time because she pays 1 year of taxes to avoid it. And the problem is eventually she won't be able to pay those taxes anymore. And it's going to get into hands that aren't as good as FNIP or somebody else who has good intentions. So I'm just glad to see that you're continuing to do those. And I would hope that after Beacon, you might focus on another 1 or 2 to address with the Abandoned Housing Act.
I would like to add a little to what Mr. Councilman Palmer put out there. Canfield was the first court case under the Abandoned Housing Act in the state of Missouri that was ever filed in St. Louis County. Right, so there's a lot of these that have been done in the city. The city's been focused on it for a few years, but the county had never been approached with anybody coming to them because it takes a nonprofit, it takes several things. And then Beacon was the next one that was filed. And then through the paperwork and the service on Tiffin, it never got a case filed. They went and paid the taxes and moved it out. So we're breaking some ground with the Abandoned Housing Act in North County. And I think, the listening to our legal services are provided pro bono by Legal Services of Eastern Missouri, and they do all of that for us. But I think they're starting to get a lot of questions from some of the neighborings. They told me they've had discussions with Jennings already. So, this program is a good way. Again, it's a very narrow slice of what they have to qualify to fall into the Abandoned Housing Act, but it is an opportunity to start, making another avenue into fixing up property in your city. Good program. And yeah, we'd like to keep going.
Yeah, it's a tool that can be used significantly faster than any government tool.
Yes.
So it has to be 1 year tax delinquent, vacant, and have outstanding code violations. And the only group, a very specific set of bylaws has to exist, or mission statement for that 501c3. The city can't use this tool. The county can't use this tool. It's specifically for neighborhood groups whose best interest is the community within where those folks live. So whereas the city, usually their timeline 7 years before they could even attempt to get a piece of property, unless the person willingly gives it to them. It has to go to auction on the fourth year of tax delinquency. If it doesn't sell, the 5th and the 6th, and then finally get onto post third. At that point, the house is generally almost beyond repair, quite honestly. We've witnessed that ourselves. We've had to tear down multiple properties that were on that post third list that were just rotting. I mean, there's no amount of money that could save them at that point almost. So the city's been cutting the grass for 7 years, taxes aren't being paid for 7 years, and there's dumping and the roof's leaking, there's trees growing out of the living room. And it's good to use that tool because you can work a lot faster than anybody else can and get it in front of a judge and title is clear.
It is.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilwoman Covington?
So, quick question, with the exterior, program, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Sorry, this came up, probably about a week ago. Could you get cameras on your house? And if it's not included in that, is there any program that you know that would help a person like get a camera or a light on the side of their house or anything like that?
So typically, no, the camera monitoring equipment all sets inside the house and we're to the outside of the house only. But the city of Ferguson actually had a program 3, 4, 5 years ago, working with Ring for a while to be able to do something like that. FNIP could do something like that, right? We would need to sit down and have the board have that discussion. There was actually a discussion about that, I don't know, maybe when the city was doing it 5 years ago, because you were going to give your connection off of your camera system to the police department and they could network through things. Well, there's been a lot of security concerns around those types of things in the last several years, right? People don't always want their camera footage being given to somebody that they don't have control over anymore. So we need to cross that bridge and have that discussion, but I think it's a program that's worth talking about amongst the board.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I do have one question for you. It's not a question, it's just more. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, much better.
It's not, it's just a suggestion. As I move around the city, very few people, there are some people that know about your program, FNIP. Can you do more advertising and more, more publicity on what our program has? We have a newspaper. I know you did a town hall at one point, had information meeting. Maybe something on Facebook, more on social media, to sort of make the citizens aware of
the program. That's basically what it is, because there are a lot of people that don't realize that, you're going on. So that's just one of the suggestions, that if you can fit it into your budget, to maybe drop every now and then in the newspaper or something like that.
Yep. Yep. No, we've done many. We've done many advertisements. We've sent out in the Parks and Recreation letter a couple of times. We do have our own setup on Facebook and put a lot of things out there. There's a lot of discussion on social media, positive and negative, about FNIP, right? I also expect the citizens to educate themselves, right? You can't say I'm not aware of it, but then you never read anything. And I've talked to several of those too. Oh, I don't read the newspaper. I'm not on social media. So it's a combination effort between everybody to be able to get those, but we will continue to do our advertisement at FNIP. We just kicked off our own website, actually. So the opportunity to go there, it'll have a direct link off of the city's website. And any questions that people have, I've visited many of them face to face to answer questions when they have them. And a lot of them hear about it through their neighbor. The neighbor does something and then like, hey, and so there's a lot of word of mouth going on too.
And true that. And like you said, some people don't read and don't do this, but how can you bridge that gap? That's what I think needs to be done, because everybody's not social media and everybody doesn't, what can you do, if it comes down to hand billing or something to that effect? I don't know, I'm just tossing it out there. You're doing what you can do, but sometimes you have to be better than your best.
Yeah. And
to
there are,
reach the people.
Yeah, there are quarterly meetings at the library, quarterly workshops at the library. And we do get, 1 to 4 or 5 people on those, just depends, but there's not a lot of people that come in. When we first started, there were, but now there's not quite as many. But yeah, I agree, in all ears. If you have some recommendations that we haven't tried.
Mr. Palmer?
And that's what I was gonna mention. You do host the quarterly workshops where they can come in with a board member and they will sit down and hold your hand through the whole process. Filling applications out. You can drop applications off. You can email them, you can mail them. And I think at one point you guys actually mailed the application to every house
We did, yes.
in the city. So there's been quite a bit of awareness done, but like you said, it's been building because you can kind of tell, like you were saying with the applicants, you're getting repeat, but also new. So people are starting to talk and, realize what's going on.
Yeah.
So.
In the case of the tree program, to what Councilman Palmer has said, right, we did a complete survey of the entire city and came up with a list of almost 700 dead trees that were identified by the arborist that went through. And we mailed an application to every one of those 690 addresses on the tree program and got a response back from about 25, right? So if it's showing up in your mailbox and it's telling you can get 75% of the money, right, to take this tree down, and you're just not acting on it, right, you can't make a person participate in the program for sure. So I think a lot of them are just, either they didn't have the money to do their part of the program, or for whatever, they chose not to participate.
Councilman Franklin?
So I was just gonna speak. You had one of your representatives was at the Forestwood Neighborhood Association meeting. I think that's a
Yes.
good place for you guys too to kind of push the program because our neighborhood organizations is where you kind of see the majority of residents show up. And when I knock doors, a lot of people don't know about FNIP. A lot of people don't know who any of us are in our city, believe it or not. And so
Yeah,
I believe in going where the people are because that's kind of how you get your message. But I did like seeing you guys there. And if you all want to do something in Ward 2, door to door, I'm willing to go and talk to people and advocate for the program because I want people to utilize it.
yep, sure. Yep, thank you.
Councilman Castle?
Well, I just want to add to that. I think one of the most exciting things about being a councilman and having an excuse to go out and talk to people and having people always call you with their problems is a lot of times I say, did you know that the Ferguson Neighborhood Improvement Program has a matching grant that could help you out with those gutters that are falling down or whatever problem that because people do, they call their councilman and they have a problem and they don't know what to do. And FNIP is such a good resource for them. So I've made a lot of people's days over the years introducing them to FNIP. Now, in reality, if all 700 of those dead trees had filed an application at $2,000 a pop matching grant for you, y'all would have been in big trouble. So, we don't, I
That
guess
would be
it's
a
one,
good problem to have, wouldn't it?
well,
Although you'd be telling somebody you didn't have.
it'd be
money,
a good
so.
problem, except you'd run out of money. And then it'd be a terrible problem because you'd have to turn everybody else away.
Exactly.
But it's, a lot of times, and another thing that we might consider, and I don't know exactly how this would work, but when code enforcement is coming down on a problem property that's owner occupied, maybe that would be an opportunity to say, hey, you could get a grant to help you abate some of these exterior code violations.
Yeah, we were doing that for a while. One of the code enforcement officers was actually carrying applications in the car and handed several of them out. And we did get some, applications as a result of that. We probably ought to try to revive that. That's a good idea. I mean, that's a really good way, because that person's being targeted to have to do a repair, right? What better time to get an application?
Larry, I want to say thank you. Great. Councilman Palmer.
One question I do have about that last comment. When code enforcement goes through OpenGov and issues a complaint, they send a nasty gram out. it gets mailed, right? Is there a way to populate that FNIP grant to go with that letter? That the application?
I mean, the question would be defining if it's owner occupied and not sending it to a landlord. I mean, there's no reason we couldn't stuff an extra piece of paper in an envelope.
Right, but the first page could say, you know, we do have a relatively good, obviously, we're not gonna send it to an LLC.
Yeah.
You know, but if it's, you know, Jeffrey Stevens, we don't know if, we should know if it's a rental, but if we
Well,
don't, the
we're-
first page could be, hey, just so you know, if you are a owner occupant, you may qualify. Yes, we just sent you a nasty letter about your house and its appearance from a routine code visit or complaint. Hey, there's also this program that you may qualify for. If that could automatically pop just an additional 2 pages printed and sent, that might really help, especially with the low income rider. Some people, their common excuse is probably going to be, yeah, I know my house looks bad, but I don't have any money to do it. Gas is $4 a gallon. My insurance is out of the roof. I can barely cut my grass. You know, then you say, well, there's a low income program too. So if you prove that you're the owner, you can get $1,500. There's no match. That would go a long way, especially with a lot of the low hanging code stuff that we can't abate. You know, we're not going to abate hanging gutters. We're just going to take it to courts and give them a ticket, you know. But if that allows them to help abate that, that might help.
And that's what I was gonna say. I don't know you wanted to go through every code violation, like grass, trash, rubbish, debris, that kind of stuff, but it was an actual physical issue with the home. It would automatically generate with that. That makes
Right.
more sense.
And you only really need to educate 2 employees on that, you know, or 3, 4. But I can see that being helpful, that by the time they get to the 4th page, it's, hey, by the way, there might be a program that could help you.
And I need to do some research, but I wonder about just attaching it to the nuisance finding that's going through the court system versus the violation finding that's going for grass, trash,
Right.
rubbish, debris, because then you would streamline that process, but I'll look into it.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Noah?
Thank you. That's all I was gonna add, exactly what you just stated, you know, and I'm not against that, the idea. However, FNIP is now their own entity, so how would that work, you know?
I mean, in my opinion, that's all it is. We're just providing the information to them. We're not saying they have to do that. It's just an opportunity for them to look into. So I don't think it would be any conflict there, because we're just providing the information that's already out there.
Thank you.
Councilman Franklin?
So I like the idea. Unfortunately, because you are independent of the city, technically local government can't use public monies to mail anything for a third party, even if
Actually,
it's
they
for our
can.
benefit.
They can
So-
form a contract with
so-
anybody they want and
Well,
work
again,
any program
we're
they
talking
can.
about just mailing. No one mentioned a contract to mail. So I'm just saying, consult the attorney before we start mailing anything. But I do like the idea.
And we're still going down the contract road still. So I mean.
So if that's something you want to do, you might want to add that language to the contract so that it can be lawful.
Any other questions from council? Councilman Palmer?
If code counselors are concerned about the cost to print a couple black and white pages, I'll be more than happy to foot that bill. We're already mailing the letter anyway, aren't we? So the postage is already paid for. So feel free to send me a bill for 250 pieces of white paper anytime, and I'll go ahead and reimburse you guys for that.
Larry, I want to say thank you for coming out this evening. You've answered a lot of questions, I think, on how the funding was spent, and come back and see us more often, you know, give us a report every now and then when you can, when you're around. And like I said, it's a good program. I've used it. And hey, thank you, and I appreciate you.
Yep. Thank you, Council.
We move to public hearing. We have the 603 Airport Road public hearing. City Manager, can you provide information for this hearing?
Yeah, this is the special use permit for 603 Airport Road. As mentioned earlier, the agenda is amended later, but I will let the clerk call anybody who wanted to comment on this.
No, there's no comment.
Oh, okay, this concludes the public hearing for 603 Airport Road, SUP. We move to consent agenda. Boards and commission minute meetings. We have regular city council meetings for July 28th and special council meeting minutes for August the 11th, civilian review board minutes for July 13th. I request a motion and a second to approve.
So
Council-
moved.
Is there
Lamika Covington.
all in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. The minutes, the council meeting and boards of commission minutes have been approved. Appointments. We're to that spot now. We have pending boards and commission appointments. I have requested a motion to appoint Stephen J. Rubin to Traffic Commission, Jeffrey Scott Davis, Civilian Review Board, Carlos Trejo, Boards of Adjustment, Muriel Lewis Harris, West Florissant Advisory Board, Jackie Wilkes, Landmarks Commission, Jennifer L. Ice, Park Board. All in favor?
You need a motion. and a second.
Motion.
So moved.
Second, Lamika Covington.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Boy, this meeting's going quick tonight, folks. We have requests. We move to liquor license request. I request a motion and a second to approve liquor license for LL-2529 King of Soul Cafe LLC and LL-2515 HG Events.
Second, Lamika Covington.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We have no proclamations. We have no resolutions tonight. We have no bills requiring second readings. Do we have any unfinished business? No unfinished business. Do we have any new business this evening? There's no news business. We move to miscellaneous. Councilwoman Noah?
Don't have that much to say, but you all tomorrow, Nesbitt Newton will meet at the Nesbitt Newton Park in the Nesbitt Newton neighborhood at 6 p.m. Please bring a lawn chair. And we're going to have the Ward 3 Southwest Quarterly meeting on October 26th. I'll be speaking more about that later. I am trying to put together a meeting for Ward 3 North Hills and Ward 3 South Central neighborhood associations or groups for September 23rd, 6 through 7 p.m. at the Ferguson Library. And I am going to be outreaching these flyers, going door to door, starting in September. I am looking for volunteers. Anyone who wants to help, you can reach out to me. You can email me or call me. I would like to just offer my public condolence on the loss of Mayor Reggie Jones for the city of Dalewood. He will be missed. Other than that, that's it for me. Thank you, staff. Really appreciate you all. Keep up the good work. Let's keep working and moving forward. Thank you all.
Councilwoman Covington? Councilman Cazzo?
Nope.
Councilman Franklin?
So I just wanted to thank staff. The last 2 weeks have been very busy, dealing with constituent concerns and complaints across the city and especially my ward. And you guys have been quite responsive to get things resolved and work with our residents as quickly as possible. And I appreciate it. Thank you.
Councilman Farmer?
I also wanted to mention, relative to housing, a couple times a year, I get the opportunity to evaluate data very specific to Ferguson, with distressed home sales, quality of houses, the worst offenders. I get a lot of data about that. And I think after about 6 or 7 years now, we are turning the corner. I know people might not believe it because they got there might be a house next door that looks really horrible or there's tall grass over here, this house burned up, but I can assure you that the load that is being transferred to the city is being lightened year over year for the last 6 or 7 years. People are starting to pay their taxes, real estate taxes more frequently on time. Less properties are reaching auction, less properties are reaching post-third. So if we can get caught up on demolition, I think, and we continue to focus our efforts on neighborhood stabilization, I think we might not have to tear any houses down once we get caught up, other than ones that might burn down throughout the year or, acts of God, storm damage type thing. But the neglect and blight deterioration is slowly improving. Like I said, it's taken 6 or 7 years, but I'm noticing it as I drive around. I'm seeing investment in the community, but also I'm noticing it on tax sale rolls, tax sale deficiencies, just caseload that comes through the courts. So we're slowly running out of properties to take off post-third, which is a good problem to have for the city. I think we had 2 last year. There was a time we had over 100. So economics are kind of helping, private investment is helping because the city hasn't done a whole lot of public investment on that front. So I just want to mention that to people because sometimes I know you drive by that same house over and over, but I'm seeing more houses get fixed and addressed than I'm seeing reach the point where they need to be fixed. That's all.
I have a few things that I'd like to bring forward this evening. Number one, I will be having a town hall meeting at the community center, at the event space on September the 2nd from 6 to 7:30. And I'd like to see everybody there if they can. It'll be a very interesting meeting. And I think the citizens deserve to have at least 2 to 3 town hall meetings a year. And this is just the start of a good thing that's happening to just make you aware of what's going on in our city. And with staff and with your roads, it would, and we got a report today on FNIP. So that's good. That's good to have it ahead of time. So I think it'll be a good time for everybody to come on out and join us. There'll be index cards at the table to write your questions down, and we'll go from there. I'll be having a vaccine day. Well, it'll be a morning. The vaccinations will be given for flu. It'll be given for shingles and COVID. And this will be done on September the 19th. That's a Saturday at the firehouse. The fire department has been very kind to open up their garage doors, and it'll be a drive-through. I'll be putting that on social media, probably started this evening. But I just wanted to bring it to the citizens and to the council. That will be going on in our city. Like I said, from 9 to 12. Anybody that needs it, it'll be free. And that's something that CVS Pharmacy, with wanting a partnership with our city to try to help people with their health. If it's free and you can come and sit in your car, they feel that and the chief feels that that'd be a great way of getting people vaccinated. It might not be for everybody, but if it's for you, it'll be, like I said, September the 19th from 9 to 12 noon, drive-through, fire department, and free. I want to thank the staff because this has been a very busy summer. We're going into fall now. They've really been out working, and I'm talking about the public works. I see them out there getting busy. I know your neighborhood might not be hit, but it's so much out there. Be patient. Just be patient with them. We're trying to do the best we can do. I saw a Facebook picture, our lawnmower smoking when they were cutting the grass. And a citizen commented, well, we broke one down. We broke one lawnmower down now, but he still kept cutting. So, and that's a good thing. Our staff does care about our community and they care about the abandoned properties. Code enforcement is out doing what they can do with the amount of people that they have. Just so if you know, we have 2 code enforcement. So they're doing code and they're doing this home inspections too. So it's a lot going on. If you have your plumbing work done, somebody has to come out from code and check it out. So, and really that's taken away from other things that they could be doing, but that's part of the job. They're doing the best they can do. I want to thank the fire and police department. I'm gonna tell you, I hear those sirens going 24/7. There's always something going on in our city. The amount of calls that our police department and the fire have. So if there's an incident, 9 times out of 10, the police and the fire are there together. If there's an accident, you got the fire department and the police department there. They're doing the best they can do with shorthand. You know, the fire department lost 5 men that retired out. Now they're going through it's like an apprentice training for the men that are coming in that don't have the experience. So it is really critical that we do continue to train our firemen and train up our police officers because they're out there in the world today and the world's not kind. I want to thank them for finding and corralling the suspects that shot up the BP station. That was a good thing. I was happy to see that because that was a terrible thing to happen in our community. I agree with everybody, what they said about it. That was a bad thing. It was terrible. Yes, it was. And last but not least, everybody should say a prayer for the Jones family, for Mayor Jones. He was my mentor. And I tell you, one thing that he told me as I was going through my journey of being elected and going through my transition with the different things that was going on after I sat down in the seat, he said, always think about your people. He said that. And he thought about his people and look at how they loved him so much. Look at the things that he did for the people. So if you don't do anything but say a silent prayer for him tonight and his family, because he was really a great guy. That's about all I have for this evening. I want to thank everybody for coming out. You know, it's hard, I know, in the evenings, if you work, if you're retired, you're in. But thank you for coming out, and thank you to the people that are online, if we have anybody. And I want everybody to be safe on the way home. And like I said, think about your neighbor. Get to know your neighbors behind you, to the right of you, to the front of you. And that's called community citizen engagement. And that's what we need around here. Know your neighbors and help us out with the neighborhood crime, because there's always somebody up at night, in the mornings, looking out their window. I tell you, my neighbor watches our house all the time, and he can see up and down the street. So thank you for coming out, and I request a motion and a second to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
The meeting is adjourned. The ayes have it.